Welcome to another episode of Marketing Tips for Doctors. I'm your host, Dr. Barbara Hales. Today, we have with us a business success coach by the name of Tami Jaffe. Tammy is a business success coach, an energy shifter, author, and international speaker who inspires successful professionals who are dreaming to resign and do something new. Tammy helps guide her clients through the sometimes overwhelming prospect of starting a new business. Tammy is the author of the book, You Already Made the Decision, You Just Aren't Happy with It, which is a guide on how to make better decisions or live with the ones you've made. Tammy is a mom to two girls and wife to a chiropractor. Their family loves traveling and experiencing new places. Welcome to the show, Tammy.
Thank you, Barbara. It's great to be here with you.
Tammy, tell us, how did you get into this field? How did that evolve?
Yeah, I call myself a recovering CPA. I started off as an accountant and worked my way up in corporate and spent 20 years working in the real estate investment management space in the corporate environment. And I got to a point that I realized that there was more to life. There was more to life than the job. I wanted to do more. I wanted to help more people. And through that, I decided I had always called myself the mentor manager, the manager who wants to help mentor you, help you get to the next place, help you figure things out. And I realized I wanted to do that through coaching and helping more people. And I started off as a leadership and career success coach because I had spent 20 years in leadership and wanted to see better leaders in our organizations and in businesses. And as I got into it, I had more and more people come to me and start saying, how did you do it? How did you make the transition from being a corporate leader to starting your own business? And finally, one day one of my coaches kind of woke me up and said, Tammy, people are asking you to coach them on this. You need to be a business coach for them and help them through this transition because it's not easy when you're starting your business.
No, absolutely not. Well, there are many people that can benefit by your services, but how do you promote yourself so that people know that you're out there and available to them?
Yeah, so I do a lot of speaking. I sponsor certain events. And I think initially when people are starting, it's about just telling people what you're doing, telling people that because your first clients are going to come from your network. Your first, patients from medical doctors are going to come from referrals from your networks. So knowing where to start and how to get started in some of that. But for me right now, I would say speaking is one of my biggest platforms because I do a lot of speaking. I love speaking and sharing that message, and people resonate with you or they don't. And so it's a great way to weed through the people so they hear your voice and they're like, yes, I can relate to that. And I understand where they're coming from and I want to work with you.
Do you contact event planners or do you mainly go to people who are associations?
A great question. So I do both. I've spoken, at local networking events to large events with thousands of people. And so it depends on, I kind of have a level that I want to do each quarter. So I'll speak at, some smaller events, some bigger events. And sometimes I'm reaching out to the event coordinators. Once you get into this world of speaking and things, most of the time they're reaching out to me and asking me to come speak at their event at this point. And so you do both. I mean, for some larger organizations, larger events, you've got to be the one reaching out. And then people will hear you speak at an event. They're like, oh, I have an event coming up. Would you speak at our event?
Since you see so many people that are embarking on a different journey for themselves, what is the one biggest mistake that you see people making when they start their business?
I think one of the biggest mistakes they make is they get in their own way. And what I mean by that is you don't know what you don't know when you're getting started. And so they find themselves spinning with all these ideas. And as soon as you put that, new business owner, the entrepreneur hat on, it's like every social media knows that you are now an entrepreneur and you are getting solicited with all these different ideas and people saying, you've got to do this one thing to make $1 million, or this is the one solution that you need in your business. And you see it all the time. And it's like, as soon as you say you're a business owner and put that entrepreneur hat on, you get bombarded with all these ideas and you don't know what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And you sign up for all these programs and all these different ideas that sound amazing. And you get halfway into them and people realize that they didn't have the first 10 steps in place in order to do that. They weren't quite at the right place in their business to be able to implement some of those solutions. So there's a right time and a right place for everything in your business. It's not that those things don't work, but for startups, it's more about getting the foundations in place in your business, getting started the right way and doing some of the right things and avoiding what we call those shiny objects, which are all of those ads hitting you on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, trying to tell you that they have the one solution that you have to have.
What do newbies need in order to speed up their results?
Great question. So one of the things they need is a good strategy and understanding of what it's going to take for them to get there. But the biggest thing I would say is really being clear on the problem that they solve for people. Too many times business owners start out and they're focused on the results that they think they want to get people instead of looking at what it is, what's the real problem that these people are facing, and what's the tangible result that they're going to help their clients, their patients, whoever it is, get, right? So how do they find that right solution in their messaging so that when they are talking to people, it's like, oh, yes, I know exactly what you do. I know exactly why you do that. And I see myself in that, or I know someone who needs that. So they've got to be really clear on the problem they solve, the result that they're getting for their clients, so the people are really drawn to what they have and what they're offering.
When they first start out, they may not have case studies to show people the benefits that they increase their clients' revenue with. So how do you suggest they promote themselves without having these studies to back themselves up?
Great question. So when you're getting started, typically you're not going to be a business coach if you've never started a business. So, you shouldn't be looking at revenue and things like that if it's you're just getting started. But look, you should be starting a business where you do have some skill set, some experience. People are coming to you for those types of solutions. So even if people haven't paid you for that service, there are probably people out there who have said, you excel in this area. You helped me with this project. You helped me with this marketing piece that I needed. Depending on your business and what you're offering, it should be something that you do have a skill set in. So you can get, testimonials from people who have not been necessarily paid clients, but say they are experienced in this area and they know what they're talking about. You can start there, but also it helps to, when you're first getting going, especially coaches and consultants and those types of industries where you don't have that expert, the background yet to say, I've helped all these people through this X, Y, and Z process. Start working with some people for a discounted rate to get some really good results with those people very quickly, and then get your testimonials, because you've got to start somewhere.
How do people know when they've nailed their message?
They know when they've nailed their message when people stop and say, oh my goodness, I know exactly who you need to talk to, or I can totally relate. I need to work with you. When you start getting those reactions, then you've nailed your message. Versus when you say your message and people are like, oh, that's nice. And then they turn and talk to the next person and they don't want to know anything more. So when people are like, tell me more, oh my goodness, I know who you need to talk to. Then you've nailed the problem and the solution that they're looking for.
When you're trying to figure out what your prospective client is looking for, what their struggles are, how do you suggest that you find it? Do you suggest they go into forums and chat rooms and see the problems that people are struggling with, or do you have other advice for them?
Yeah, there's a few ways you can do it. You can definitely like look at what people are saying in different forums and platforms. I highly recommend doing some ideal client interviews. I have specific questions that I tell my clients to ask that are going to help guide you through those questions in that interview to give you the answers and pull out the right words that you're looking for in your messaging. So if you can find 10, 15 people to talk to about the specific problem that you're solving, it'll help pull out the language that they're using. You ask them, what is your biggest challenge? You ask them some very specific questions around where they are and where they want to go. And it will give you the language you need in order to pull out. You'll hear some common themes, some common words, some common messages coming through that.
Are most people amenable or forthcoming with those answers, especially if it's not someone that you have a relationship with?
Yeah, surprisingly they are. When you can relate and you go about it the right way and invite them to the conversation in the right way, like this is not a sales conversation. I'm just trying to gather some information and get an understanding, then they don't feel like if you come at it from, a very salesy tactic, they're going to not feel as trusting to open up to you. And so it's all about how you approach them and approach the conversation with them. People will share because people, when you can relate to where they're at, and you're asking the right questions, they're willing to share that information.
There are many people out there that are totally burnt out at this stage of the game in the profession that they're in.
Mhm.
They're saying, maybe I should just close the doors and think about doing something else. So, what are 2 tips that you could give our listeners to not only help them decide, but how to make the transition easier?
Yeah, it's a hard place to be in, right? When you're in this dilemma of do I do something else? Do I, if you're in a job, do I quit the job? If you have a business, do I switch businesses? And so there's a lot of contemplating, a lot of spinning that goes around in your mind. And I talk about in my book, you mentioned my book earlier, you already made the decision, you're just not happy with it. Um, in there, I talk about how to make better decisions and live with the one you made. And I share a formula that I call the clarity trifecta. And this is the formula for making those big decisions, making those big changes, because it's not about you first got to make the decision, right? And then you've got to actually get through that whole transition because it's decisions every day that you have to keep making and keep deciding. And what I share in the formula is that it all starts with clarity. As you're making any big transitions, including, do I change jobs? Do I start another business? You've got to get clarity. You've got to, when you're contemplating it, your clarity bubble, I call it, is like really small. And as that grows and you start to get questions answered, like, what else would I do? Where else could I be successful? What do I want to do? Why isn't this working for me? Because until you figure out, what isn't working, something else isn't going to work well for you either. So getting clarity and getting answers to some of those questions, who could help me with this, helps push out on this clarity trifecta. It is this triangle you can picture around that clarity bubble in the middle. And the 3 sides of the triangle are your confidence, your courage, and your commitment. And as your clarity grows, your confidence will start to grow and you'll have the faith and belief that you can make the change, the faith and belief that you can do this. And your courage starts to grow. So you can go out and take that first step. And you don't have to have every step figured out. You need to know your first couple steps. And then as you take that first step, the next step becomes a little more clear and you can take the next step and then the next step. And then the momentum starts to build. And as your clarity grows, your commitment grows as well, because it's really hard to be committed to something and making a change when you're not really clear on what that change is. So everybody always says it starts with commitment, but it starts and it ends. Like you have to have a little bit of commitment to get the clarity that you need in order to really make a transition, make the shift, make the change, and make it successful for you.
One thing that I advise people is that they should look at the end results and the end goal and then work backwards.
Mhm.
As you can imagine, people are really very indecisive in the beginning. They're looking to see if the choices they're contemplating are realistic and whether they can be successful. And they have the fear of the unknown and the fear of whether they can be successful or not. How do you advise people to get the clarity and to arrive at the confidence that they will need?
Yeah, it's a process, right? So, the thing with looking at the end in mind, it's great to understand what you want that to be. But a lot of times, if you've never had a business, you don't know the steps in between. You need someone to help guide you. You need someone to help give you that clarity and answer those questions for you. So finding a coach, finding a mentor, finding people that have been through it and asking the right questions. And so it always comes back to, what are the questions you need answered? What are the things that you're unsure of? And sometimes you think you know the answers and you get halfway into it and you're like, oh no, that was not the right step. And so then you've got to back up and start reassessing. What is it that I really need to be doing? So I think with understanding, getting that clarity, knowing where to go and getting the answers, a lot of it comes down to having the right direction and getting the right support as you go through that.
I agree with you wholeheartedly that it's so important to get mentors that will guide you every step of the way, especially in the beginning. And it will not only cut down on the floundering, but just shorten your time from beginning to success so much more.
Absolutely.
For those people that are listening and would like to contact you, how can they do so?
Yeah, you can reach me through my website, TamiJaffe.com. And for those of you who are making that transition and wanting to make the leap from being an employee to starting your own business, or maybe you've already started that, but your business isn't as successful as you want it to be yet, you can grab what I call the Corporate to Cash Jumpstart Kit at thejumpstartkit.com. And that is the guide on showing you how to get more clients, know exactly what you need to hit that, like that end number. What is it going to take for you to get there? Where to get those leads from, and what strategy you should be using.
Is there a fee for that toolkit?
That is absolutely free for your listeners today.
Excellent. And could you repeat the URL to get that free toolkit again?
Yes, it's the jumpstartkit.com.
Great. And for all those people that didn't get a chance to write it down and are panicking that they've forgotten it already, that information will be in the show notes.
Awesome.
Well, it was wonderful having you here today, Tammy. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your tips.
Thank you, Barbara. It was great being here with you.
This has been another episode of Marketing Tips for Doctors with your host, Dr. Barbara Hales. Till next time. Well, that was fun.
Yes, thank you. It was fun.
When in the beginning, what I do in interviews such as this, where there really isn't any major editing necessary, is I put it on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
And so when that happens, I will send you the link so that you could share it with your followers.
Okay.
And the podcast is edited. When that goes live, I will send you the information as to the date and some graphics to go along with it.
All right. Sounds great, Barbara. And I know you scheduled to come on mine as well in a few weeks.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Awesome. Well, I can't wait. We'll see you then.
Okay.
Have a great week.
You too. Bye now.
Bye.